The U.S. national debt forges on with 3 organizations that have contributed to this in a great way as the money changers. And we're going to talk about that and so much more as we explore. That's right, the secret message from the U.S. debt clock. This is a series of videos that I'm doing that outlines the messages that the folks at the debt clock send to us every couple of days. And this new one is a doozy. This one really puts it into perspective for us. But before we get to that, let's take a look at the numbers here. The U.S. national debt is climbing. We are getting much closer to $34 trillion now. $33.88 trillion right now, and it's all because of this U.S. federal budget deficit spending. They're spending more than they take in by a dramatic amount, and that is causing the interest on the debt to rise as well too, $691 billion, and some say it's really higher than that. In fact, when you take into account all of the national debt, you look at the unfunded liabilities and everything else that's put into it, you have the U.S. total debt at $103 trillion, $103.5 trillion. Probably more than that with other things that are not accounted for here too. The derivatives market as well is quite massive, quite huge. The U.S. money supply is still big, but it is pulling back somewhat. But let's get to the secret message because there's trickery at play here, and that's what this is about. This is the newest message from James Madison, and this is a good one. We the people. Here's a statue of James Madison and what was founded upon. He's known as the author of the Constitution, and we can see here the ichthus, their fish there at the bottom, likely a Christian. And I think this is, and we also have the image there of the gold American Liberty reverse, a beautiful design there. And but nonetheless, this is what he says, James Madison. History records that the money changers have used every form of abuse, intrigue, and deceit and violent means possible to maintain their control over governments by controlling money and its issuance. For those of you who don't understand that reference here, the money changers is what Jesus came upon into the temple as they did that, literally changing the money. And that's exactly what happened in the temple. And there's 3 organizations that are a part of this. The United States Federal Reserve System, and by association, really, most central banks out there. And then you also have the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. All 3 of those agencies are a part of it. But what is the true thing that we can have that can solve this? That's gold, silver, and sound money. A debt-free currency, essentially, as well, too. We could utilize that to protect ourselves. But really, in the end, gold and silver are the ultimate form of money. So this secret message here with James Madison is quite profound, and I think really intrigues and it gives us right to the heart of the matter. Our founders knew what they were talking about. It took them months to devise the Constitution, and as it is written, as it once was put in from the Articles of Confederation, and that gives the central government just enough power to hold the states together, cohesive, and something that complements the states and empowers the states and complements the states. And they know that any kind of central power and giving governments more control, that's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happened in the temple with the money changers as well too. And so when you look at this, the founders understood the great vast amount of history that was before them that they could use as a basis for the foundation for that document, for the Constitution, which is still in effect today, believe it or not. It just is not respected the way that it should be. Because why? In that very same document, we have Article 1, Section 10 that sets gold and silver as money. And the founders knew it, and James Madison, certainly as the author of the Constitution, knew it. But so many other minds were involved in this document. But James Madison really is thought to be the father of said document. And a very smart individual for sure. Stood at 5'3" I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was 5'6". But he was a rather short man of stature. But nonetheless, he also had a very lovely wife, Dolly Madison, who saved the portrait of George Washington upon the attack on the Capitol and the White House in 1814. But yes, indeed, there it is. And this message is certainly profound. And if only our politicians would read some of these documents, read what the founders said about their commentary on the Constitution, or just the Constitution itself, and respected it, I think we would be in a much better place. But alas, we are not, and because of that, we have a debt that is out of control. Sooner or later, something's going to have to give somewhere, somehow, in some way. But I think it's going to take a lot more than $33.8 trillion. And it's going to take somebody that actually going to actually care. Because what happens, both sides of the aisle, they only express any concern over the debt whenever they're in power or the opposition does something. They always bring the debt up when that is. But nonetheless, the debt and the deficit spending is something that has been out of control by both parties. And last time we did this, the biggest uprun of this debt and deficit spending happened during the pandemic, because we shut the whole government down. And so we had to pay people, and because it was the government's fault for shutting it down. And now it's coming back to bite us. Should have never shut the government down, or never should have shut the economy down during that time. But lessons learned, hopefully now, if that were to happen again. But here we are, and we're paying for it. Not only then, but there's still increased spending, and that's happening. And it's just money changing. It's really all it is. And whenever you can just print fiat currency out of thin air, this is what happens. And it's digitized, and it's going to be changed yet again. That money changing will happen another time when we move to a central bank digital currency, which may not be coming tomorrow, but we have the foundation for it right now with something called Fed Now, which is in effect, and many financial institutions are embracing it and are being encouraged by the Fed, where all transactions will go through the Fed, and conceivably in order to tie it in and to be able to check those transactions to make sure they're legitimate and not going for anything that they see as nefarious. Notice that they are the arbiters of that. That's the foundation for a central bank digital currency. Other nations around the world are already there. Others are talking about it. And when you have folks like in the World Economic Forum, which is in other globalist entities trying to move in that direction, even the Bank of International Settlements is pushing for such a thing. Well, there's real problems there. So we'll continue to press on. We believe in sound money. You cannot print gold. You cannot print silver. They knew that. James Madison knew it. There's only one form of real sound money, and that is gold and silver. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.